United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could remain standing and remember our men and women in the armed forces that are in the service now and before, and remember our local resident that passed away last week, Bobby Brown. Thank you. Is there any public comment on agenda items? Okay, we'll move on. We have a discussion. 23 Tobin's. Is that it? Did you see the front page? And I don't have it in my packet, so
It's okay, you can bring the discussion on overall.
guys, thank you so much. Who, does everyone have this in their packet?
No, I don't.
Looks like this?
I'll share.
Okay. Merv?
I do, let me see it.
No, it won't be in
Yeah,
there.
it's not in there.
No, it's,
No?
no.
Sure. Good. I'm good.
All right. So you have a letter here dated the 29th of May, 2018. It's addressed to the village. I am the owner of the above referenced home, which is 23 Tobin's Lane, originally constructed in 1880, and located in the R5 zone, apartments and condominium residence zoning district. I purchased the property in December of 2017, at which time it was configured and operating as a two-family residence. Shortly after I purchased the property, I began extensive renovations of the structure with the intent of updating the entire building with new windows, doors, kitchen, bathroom, insulation, electrical and plumbing systems, siding and roofing. In effect, I plan to bring the structure into the modern day and replace aspects of the home that have fallen into disrepair over the building's nearly 140 years existence. The project is also one that will improve the neighborhood and property that has been an eyesore in the community for several years. Shortly after beginning the construction, I received a stop work order at the property, and all the construction activity has ceased. At that time, I was advised by the building department that I needed to appear before the Village and Highlands Planning Board, who subsequently referred me to the Village of Highlands Zoning Board. The issue in question is the property's non-conformance with local law, section 240-37-B, minimum residential floor area, which reads as follows: type of residence, single and two-family detached dwelling or apartment. Minimum required floor is 1,200. You need 1,200 square feet for a single or two-family detached dwelling. Apartment, 900 square feet. I request the zoning variance from the zoning board on the above issue, and the existing building contains only 800 square feet on each floor. My request was denied at a hearing on the 16th of May. At that time, I am at this time, I am requesting that the village consider revisiting the minimum floor area requirements identified above. This may encourage and enable younger families to afford to and move into the downtown area, thereby revitalizing the neighborhood in the interest of jump-starting redevelopment and investment in our town. It may be helpful if the village considers a tier structure in regards to the minimum required floor area per family. For example, perhaps a minimum square footage can be established for studio, one-bedroom, two-bedroom, three-bedroom units as follows. And he gives it there, 700 square feet, 850 square feet, 1,000 square feet. It is not uncommon for towns to address zoning in this way. For example, a nearby town of Monroe, New York, has similar language in the zoning code. I sincerely hope that the village considers some alternative to the above zoning law, and I welcome the opportunity to work with the community in these efforts. So, it's on there for discussion. I know our attorney knows about this because I spoke to her also. Any just comments?
Well, what's the negative part of it?
Well, right now you require the 1,200 square feet for single and two-family houses detached. You allow apartments to be 900 square feet. What he's asking for is a change to your zoning law, which would
Right.
require a law change, which would require, of course, a public hearing, et cetera, to lower or decrease the square footage of particular types of units. The state doesn't have, if you look at the state code, they don't have a minimum square footage per type of dwelling. They do have minimum square footage, for example, bedrooms, which I think is 70 square feet, et cetera. So it's really up to the village to determine whether or not you want to consider this. It's totally discretionary. Right now, you allow, and I wrote down there on my notes, certain zones allow single and two-family, conversions from single to two-family, et cetera. So the board would be, if you lower your square footage requirements, then a potential consequence might be that smaller single-family homes are more easy to convert into two families, for example. I'm not familiar with your housing stock in the village. I would assume the building inspector might be, to give the board some idea of what kind of consequences there might be if you did something like this. The examples he shows you are from the town of Monroe. They're just examples. I would say, though, that this gentleman needed two variances. He needed variance for square footage of the units. He needed a variance for the total minimum lot area, which he needed, I think he needed 5,000 square feet, and he had like 4,700. So I think his apartments, not apartments, but his dwellings were also, I think they were two-bedroom. So even under his proposal, he wouldn't have enough square footage. Because he's suggesting 800 feet per two-bedroom, and he had a total of, is that what he's suggesting, 800 or 900? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at least in our code, when it says 900 square feet for an apartment versus 1,200 for a single and two-family dwelling, we're making the distinction that the apartment is in a three or more?
Yes. The implication is that an apartment is in a multifamily unit, which is 3 units or more, or, an apartment building. So there's a distinction there.
He does point to Cornwall, but in looking at this really quickly, Cornwall is addressing the need for accessory apartments, which is a whole different
It's a
animal.
whole different animal. And I can tell you, the town of Monroe and the village of Monroe keep a very tight rein on accessory apartments. So I'm not sure why you threw that in there, unless, I mean, typically an accessory apartment is, you know, my mother is aging and I want her to live with me and I'm gonna have this little apartment within my house. And there are all kinds of rules and regulations, at least in the village of Monroe, which just redid their zoning to address that. That's not what he's asking for here, and I'm not sure why he included that.
Well, he's asking for 800 and,
He had, he's asking for 850 and 2 bedrooms.
right.
His
So that would be, excuse me, so that would be 2 units
at 850.
at 850, but I thought you said apartments would be a multifamily, so that would be 3 units.
How this would apply to his, house, apartment would not apply to his house. He doesn't have apartments. He has a duplex. He has a 2-family house. At least that's what he was creating. So what would,
He'd have to have 1,200 square feet per unit.
yes, right now, but he didn't get that variance because he only has 842 and 848. Did that answer your question or not?
Well, I have a lot of stuff here for sure.
I have a lot of questions too, and, you know, I'm not sure if, so did he bought this, he owns this, and this is what he decided to do? I mean, is this an opportunity where some of the houses that we have that are all boarded up, is this what this guy does, fix them up and?
I really can't answer that question.
He has come in and taken them.
I think he does own another property in the village that he did buy and fix
From one
up.
perspective, is that a bad idea that this guy's gonna dress up some of these houses and do something with them, you know?
That issue wasn't really before the zoning board. The zoning board was looking at a very substantial variance in square footage. And at some point, the way the ZBA looked at it is,
I have their ZBA findings right here.
Yeah,
Anybody wants to read them?
right, a ZBA looks at something like this and says, I'm not the village board. This is such a substantial variance that it's not a good idea for the board to grant such a variance. And also, that opens the door to anyone else seeking the same type of variance in the same circumstances. The board, the ZBA, would have to adhere to prior precedent. So it's not that it would have been a precedent, but it could have been a precedent. So what this gentleman is doing is saying, okay, I understand that. So I am coming back to the board that actually controls the zoning and suggesting for all of these reasons to reconsider the 1,200 square feet. And he's making suggestions on what he would consider to be reasonable.
So, based on some other projects that have transpired in the village over the past few years, some new duplex units, the old Hilltop, which came before the planning board, and they were only allowed to have 2 units up there, but I believe are 2,000 square feet apiece. So they could turn that, in essence, because they have 8 off-street parking spaces, they could turn that into 8 apartments now, once we pass this.
Only if apartments are allowed. If they could get a multifamily unit out of that, and they meet the 900 square feet in each unit that's required now, and these are apartments that are for rent, which is what an apartment typically is, unless it's a condo. If they can do that in the zoning now, they can do that. Their limit is 900 square feet. If they can get 3 apartments and they have the zoning and they're renting 3 apartments, they can do it if it's allowed in the zone. That doesn't really change.
But what would change if we changed it to, we're looking to change it now, right? Obviously.
That's completely up to the board. You've been asked.
Well,
Let's go back to the zoning board. even if this-
No, well, he would still, unless you change the minimum lot area, he would still need a variance for that,
Right.
even if he could meet his suggestion, which is 850, if you have two-bedroom apartments, he still wouldn't meet that if he has 2 bedrooms. He could have 1 bedroom
I thought he
and
had
a den.
I think he has a bedroom and an, whatever they call it now, an office. A
Okay,
den, an office,
then-
I don't know.
Then if he identifies it as a 1-bedroom
Yeah.
unit, he would only need the 850.
When I walked in,
Or
he's
the
at,
700.
Yeah, he's at the
What's
end
that?
of
He's
our-
going for 700, right?
He's going for 700.
And Mr. Howard, just real quick, just because in the ZBA, it states that he has 842 and 848 square feet, just so you know. I'm sorry.
But
he lives at the end of the street, Church and Tobin. Dilapidated house, he fixed it up.
Okay.
So I walked through it,
I never saw
and I said, this is a 2-bedroom. And he said, no, it isn't. It's a 1-bedroom and an office. And they took me downstairs, and it's the same layout, the exact same layout. He says, I have a 1-bedroom plus an office. I said, okay. In other words, he corrected me when I said, is this a 2-bedroom? He said, no. It's 1 bedroom, 1 small office.
He says
Okay.
for variance, but he feels he'll get it because it's close. That's what.
He also has a lot of
That's what he's-
off-street
that's what
parking
he's thinking.
in that.
Whether that comes.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, the planning board would certainly, it would have to go back to the planning
Right.
board regardless of what, if you guys change the code, he will still need a special permit to do
Right,
the
that's what I'm
conversion.
saying, right.
So he would have to go back to the planning board.
Right.
The planning board would then look at the 5,000 square foot lot and he would still need a variance, which the zoning board did not reach because they didn't reach the first issue, which is the 850.
Yeah, what he was thinking was, and it's a, you know, you don't know the outcome. If the village lowered the square footage for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom, in other words, had a gradual increase. Because I do find it something that you need 1,200 square feet for a 3-bedroom, and you need 1,200 square feet for a 1-bedroom. I'm not sure the reasoning, I'm sure there was a reason. But if we were to do a gradual thing and say the first one started at 900, as an example, he would have to go back because he only has 850.
That's correct.
But I think he felt that he could probably, maybe, hopefully, his thinking, they would give him the variance. In other words, to give him a variance now is really dropping, you know, he's nowhere near 1,200.
Right,
But
that's correct.
if the village had a zoning for that 1-bedroom at 900, I think he felt or lower, but 900 is the example that he felt he might be able to get a variance on 50, not knowing if that would come to pass or not. That's where he's coming from.
So the ZBA had a public hearing on this?
Oh, yes.
Did the applicant appear at the public hearing?
Not at the public hearing, but he was there the prior meeting. The only other thing to consider, this board may want to consider, is that in a lot of communities, it's based on bedroom, and many developers will say, oh, I have 1 bedroom, 1 den, 1 playroom, 1, office, and now you have 4 bedrooms. So you can't really regulate. It's very hard. You can't enforce that. Once someone's in there,
It happened,
Yeah.
yes, and that happens, and that's not,
and that's always going to happen.
Yeah, it happened up here in Center and Snyder.
Yeah. It's-
They weren't supposed to convert the garages, but they did convert the garages to a bedroom. So, you're right, it happens.
In looking through some of the other village codes, because he went to town codes throughout Orange County, I found that it went anywhere from 500 square feet for an accessory apartment, up to 900. So,
Well,
I mean...
I wouldn't
yeah.
count accessory apartments. That's a totally different thing. I've seen 900 is the most common that I see for the single or 2-family. There are lower ones. I mean, look, if you live in New York City, you're living in 450
400,
square feet
Right.
for a studio apartment.
Correct.
So it just depends on even if you lower the square footage, you still have to meet the two parking spaces per unit. I mean, it's not just one thing you have to address. You have to address parking and everything else.
And and just to make a note that he does, for the board, he does meet parking. He has he has a lot next to his that fits like maybe 8 to 10 cars. So he's in very good shape there.
So he owns the lot next door?
Yeah.
Yes.
So here's a question.
But he had 4 parking spots on site.
Right, so
He does,
so
yeah.
here's a question. Can a lot have, as a use, parking only on it in the village? We went through this.
I don't think so,
We went through
actually.
this.
Yeah. Unless it's, in your code, if it's not allowed, it's prohibited. So
Correct.
there has to be an affirmative statement that parking lots are permitted in this zone, and then that can be a principal use.
Well, if I'm not, maybe I'm misunderstanding. He has a parking lot, he has off-street parking. What is the difference? If we're making someone have off-street parking, he has off-street parking.
The off-street parking under your code, to satisfy it, has to be on the lot. It can't be somewhere else.
Okay.
In other words, I think.
Okay, so I don't know if this particular off-street parking area, let me address it, say it that way, maybe, I don't know if it's part of that property where the house is or not.
I don't think that it is.
Okay.
But he did have enough parking on the lot.
On the lot itself?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that's a moot.
That's a
that
moot
we
point
don't have to talk about
for
that.
him,
Yeah, for
anyway.
that, for him.
Yeah.
For him, but that doesn't mean, somebody who has a two-family, who has 2,000 square feet and wanted to turn it into 2 units, but say they only had a postage stamp size lot, which is 50 by 100, they could, in essence, just turn the whole yard into parking. So they conform with the parking requirements, but then they have no yard. They can do that, right?
That's their property.
Right, okay.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was just answering yours.
So as this said here, it's discussion. Think about it some more. I would like to take it up again at our next meeting to come to some type of resolution. The resolution can be, we don't do anything and therefore it's not granted, or the resolution could be that we decide we want to do a gradual increase in 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and if that's the case, Lisa will be here and you can work through that and help us out while we're discussing this again in 2 weeks. Mr. Howard, did you want to say something? Or did you already?
I already did.
Okay, thank you. Charlie, okay?
I'm good.
Jim? Okay. Merv?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll move on. The correspondence you have before you from 10 Walker, it's about a sewer bill. It could be an empty house right now. I know the gentleman passed away. This is his daughter who lives somewhere not here in Highland Falls. Water bill of $239.71. Therefore, her she's claiming there was a leak. Take a moment, read the letter, and decide what we want to do.
Where is Walker Road?
Walker Road is down there by the U.S. Academy Motel. Just before it, there's a right, takes you into Pellwood Lake.
Okay, got it.
Have we had an opportunity to ask Kevin Hurst about the leak and to verify that the excessive water did not go into the sewer?
As a matter of fact, Kevin Hurst, an employee of the town, I think he works for the village, turned off the water as soon as he discovered water seeping out from underneath the garage door. You have to be careful with these. They're coming up, you know.
Says here, none of this water went into the sewer.
I'm sorry.
No, first of all, it's not even a lot of money.
I know. We've just had this in front of us not too long ago,
There's,
so.
and we didn't do anything about the water. I think we addressed the sewer based on confirmation from the village employees that it didn't go down the sewer line. I think that's how we addressed it last
Yeah,
time,
we did.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they use the water. Can't, but that bill does not change.
It doesn't. Agree. Good? Yeah. We're good here.
Are we denying this? That's all I want to know.
I am.
Yes, okay. Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Charlie?
Well, it is difficult because people will come in and say that they had a leak, but in this instance, if we can verify that the house was actually empty and that our employee turned the water off because of a burst pipe, we might have some good cause to make some concession on the sewer
But
bill.
who owned the home?
The name's down here.
Right, so, I mean, it's still their home, though.
They own the property,
Right.
but they're maintaining that the water that was used did not go into the sewer.
I understand what you're saying, but, you know, just speaking for myself, I think this is the fourth since I've been on board.
The fourth?
Right. There was a couple of them.
I can remember one other.
No, there was
were a couple.
two, I think.
Well, one we denied because it was
Just the
a
third.
toilet running.
This is actually the third. So, I've made my choice. You're welcome to yours.
I say based on past practice where it was confirmed by a village employee that the water did not go down the sewer, I would grant reducing their sewer bill only.
Yeah, the water bill
That's-
stays no
yeah,
matter what.
Based on our past
All right,
practice.
to move on, we need to make a motion on how anyone feels. Is there a motion to address this?
I'll make a motion that Kevin Hurst verify. And then we'll proceed like we did with the other ones.
All right, we'll table this and we'll have Kevin Hurst verify where the water went.
But the bill stays the same, water bill stays the same. Right?
Next on the agenda is property maintenance. We'll open a public hearing on the first one here, 17 Liberty Street. It's for high grass and securing the premise. Is there, this one, yes, this one has 2 violations. All the rest are high grass.
Okay.
So, yeah, I appreciate that, thank you, because I do forget. Is there anyone here from, owner of 17 Liberty or representing 17 Liberty? Okay. So there's no one here to make comments. I'll read a resolution pertaining to the property. 17 Liberty, Section 103, Block 23, Lot 3. Whereas a long-standing violation of the Village Property Maintenance Law, Chapter 170 of the Village of Highland Falls Code has existed at 17 Liberty Street, designated as Tax Map 103-23-3, and whereas the property owner has been given due notice of said violation and has been directed to correct the violations, and whereas the property owner or owners were given due notice of public hearing to be held by the board of Trustees on June 6, 2018 at 7 p.m. to determine whether the violations have been properly remedied and whether to order the corrective action be undertaken by the village to correct said violations at the property owner's cost and expense, and to bill the cost and expense to the property owners and to levy same against the property. And whereas a public hearing was duly held by the Board of Trustees, and whereas the owner did not appear, and whereas the owner or owners have not taken steps to correct the violations, and the violations still exist, and whereas the Board of Trustees is authorized pursuant to Section 170-6 of the Property Maintenance Law to authorize that the village undertake to remedy said violations at the property owner's cost and expense. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Murphy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Livesey, roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. All right, all right, the next 7 will be done together. Is there, we'll close that public hearing, Gina, and we'll open up this one at the time said on the following. This public hearing is on 14 Lake Street, 20 Lake Street, 77 Church Street, 9 Sweezy Avenue, 6 Catherine Street, 12 Cooks Lane, and 18 Wyandotte. Is there anyone here, owners or anyone representing any of those addresses? These are all for high grass, nothing else. The other one was for high grass and securing the building. If not, I'll close the public hearing. I'll close the public hearing and do one resolution. Property location. 14 Lake Street, 20 Lake Street, 77 Church Street, 9 Sweezy, 6 Catherine, 12 Cooks Lane, and 18 Wyandotte. Whereas long-standing violations of the Village Property Maintenance Law, Chapter 170 of the Village of Highland Falls Code has existed at those locations designated. Whereas the property owner or owners have been given due notice of said violations and have been directed to correct the violations. And whereas the property owner or owners were given due notice of a public hearing to be held by the Board of Trustees on June 4th, 2018 at 7 p.m. to determine whether the violations have been properly remedied and whether to order that corrective action be undertaken by the village to correct said violations of the property owner's costs and expense, and to bill the costs and expense to the property owner and to levy same against the property. And whereas the public hearing was duly held by the Board of Trustees, and whereas the owner or owners did not appear, and whereas the owner or owners have not taken steps to correct violations, and the violations still exist. Whereas the Board of Trustees authorizes pursuant to Section 170-6 of the Property Maintenance Law to authorize the village undertake to remedy such violations at the property owner's cost and expense. If I could have a motion on that resolution for those addresses that I...
Motion.
Motion by trustee, second by trustee Ramus, all in favor, may I have roll call?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
You know, when people hear these things, they say, oh, this is the board announcing this. That's not how it works. When people come up to us, and they do, and they say, you know, I'm living on this street, and two houses down, take a look at that. People have a right, if they're living on a street, to have quality of life. People need to maintain their property, and if they don't, then neighbors have a right to come and see any one of us and ask to put that on the list, and that's what we're going to do. People are assuming because we do this, that it's 5 of us get around a table and we say, well, this house. That's not how it's working. Neighbors are coming up to us and asking for help. Perfect example is Muller Avenue, and last week was Center. when people came up and said, there are 2 houses there, can you help us with it? I just want to make it clear. Neighbors have the right to come to any one of us here and ask, would you do something about that? It's taking down our neighborhood.
It's so true. Next on the agenda is minutes that we need to approve that you have before you from May 21, 2018, and we had a special meeting on May 29, 2018.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, if I could have a motion for the May 21 regular meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by trustee Howard, seconded by trustee Livesey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. May I have motion to approve the minutes from the special meeting on the 29th of May?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Murphy. Is there a second?
Second.
And abstain.
Second by trustee Ramus. May I have roll call?
Aye. Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, you have a letter. Church of God Bilingual of Highland Falls, 341 Main Street. Now, you see it's addressed to Mr. Livesey, the town supervisor, which I believe... No, did they take it up, Gina? Gina, they took this up? Or they're... Okay.
Rich, did you guys talk about this?
Okay, so this is, they've done this before. They're asking to have this revival on, from June 7th to 7th to June 9th, from 6 to 9.
They changed it to June 21st to 23rd.
Oh, down here. I know that. Okay, so now the dates are not June 7th to the 9th, they're June 21 to the 23rd. Insurance has been provided with the corrected dates from June 21 to June 23. And the only thing I would like to add to this is that they can't park on the grass. They can't park in Memorial Park, which has happened. They also want permission to put signs on telephone poles, which we cannot give them permission to do. So, they'll do their church revival again on June 21 to the 23rd. The hours are 6 to 9 p.m. See the last paragraph? They were asking for permission to put signs and flyers around town. They can put them around town, but not, we're not giving them permission for that.
Is that what they always have until 9? Is that the usual time?
Well, I didn't go last year. I don't remember.
I think it was.
I would say probably. I got 3 hours of sleep in by that, believe me.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Motion by trustee Livesey to allow revival. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Ramus. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify that you're allowing them to post around the village, but you're allowing them that, but you have no authority to allow them to post on the telephone poles?
Well, it's specifically prohibited.
Yes, I know. I just want to make it clear in the record that you're not denying them.
I mean, don't you see the thousands of staples on telephone poles? It's prohibited.
I know.
Oh, my God.
Yard sale.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We have a request here from the fire department to allow Car 1 to travel to the New York State Association of Fire Chiefs Conference for 1 day, June 11th. It's in Verona. It doesn't say there, but it's in Verona. We also have a request to have the Car 1 and the Utility 430 to attend the Hudson Valley Parade and Convention in Lake George on June 21 through the 24th. Coverage for the village will be assured with automatic aid. Could we allow those two dates and those vehicles
I'd
to
allow
leave the
that.
village?
Absolutely.
Motion by trustee Livesey, is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Murphy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And you'll see the other note down there for the mandatory cancer coverage for volunteer firefighters effective January 1. He had budgeted, it's something new, so he had budgeted $300 per firefighter, and preliminary estimates show that it might be less than $250, so hopefully that's the case. Okay? Next, do we want to take this up with the sewer, with the water plant?
We can discuss it.
Pardon?
We can discuss it if the
All
board
right,
so chooses.
So, you know, we had this at the last meeting, we tabled it until additional information could be obtained, and,
Mr. Mayor,
yeah,
I think we actually did vote on it.
on the 10,571 Spinelli, I think so.
Yeah, the language was, pending, we approved it, pending a quote on what it would cost to.
Hook it to the sewer, that's correct. So, we approved 10,571, pending the cost of doing it a different way. And the different way came to 58,000.
And it should be noted, we only got one quote in on that.
So, are you ready to let the water plant fix this problem with Spinelli for the 10,571? Knowing it's underground, knowing we can't see it, knowing we don't know what's gonna happen when the earth is uncovered. Right, Mr. Sullivan? You've been in that situation.
I'm not quite sure what you're talking about, but I've been
So yes or no,
in
sir?
any situation to do with water, yes.
We're talking septic.
And I want to make reference that Councilman Richard Sullivan is here, and we like that. Thank you. So what is your wishes here? To stay with our original motion?
I have on my notes that it's tabled until special meeting to pay bills. So did you take it up at the special meeting then?
Yeah, we discussed it.
Okay, all right. Which I wasn't at, so.
Yeah, we-
But that's correct. We took it up. We did go with this here quote, but then we decided at the same time to check out another avenue.
Okay.
And it turns out that avenue is $48,000 higher.
This needs,
$48,000.
needs to get done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And was the $10,000 included the riser, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So is your wish to stay with the original motion?
I think,
With that all, if they stay with that, I don't need
Yeah,
anything
you
other.
made you approved it for the 10,000,
Correct.
correct? So it's done.
yeah, we were just looking to do
You just-
more homework on another alternative, which would have been hooking up to the sewer manhole that's up there. With that being said,
So you're just really ratifying your earlier decision.
There you go, that's the word.
right, and letting the board know, well aware that, like the mayor said, once they dig the earth up, it could cost us more. I don't want to call this a Band-Aid fix. Hopefully this is the fix, that we will have to have maintenance done every year. I spoke with the water department about that, that will be in their budget for maintenance of that tank. So he'll have that in there. And hopefully the tank works.
All right, so could I have ratification of the previous?
Yeah, you might as well. Just a motion to ratify the
Motion. Okay,
previous
thank you.
resolution.
Motion to ratify.
Motion by trustee, you understand, Gina?
Yes.
Motion by trustee Murphy, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by trustee Ramus, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Let me do this. I have bills for fiscal year 17-18. They're still coming in, $29,027.35. And then I have bills for the new year that just started on June 1 for fiscal year 2019 of $166,732.85. Motion to pay bills would be appropriate now.
Make a motion.
Motion by trustee Livesey, is there a second?
I have a question on one of the bills, Mr. Mayor. If maybe we could get clarification for the residents. I see Village of Highland Falls Service Water Trust for $50,000.
That's the LoSAP,
LoSAP? Oh,
Service Award Program for the Fire Department.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
May I have a motion by trustee Livesey, is there a second? Did you make a motion?
Second.
Seconded by trustee Murphy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, I have the letter downstairs that your husband submitted, and we were going to take it up at the next meeting, but you're here, we can talk about it. So the letter was a request that he and you, or how is that?
It's primarily him.
Okay, that he be allowed to open a hot dog stand similar to what Mr. Anderson had for many years at the same parking lot, at the same space,
Correct.
for the summer, spring, summer, fall months.
Correct.
So now would be a time to discuss it.
I would like to ask, do you plan to, have you already contacted Vision to secure a space? Because on Sundays, Vision has the farmer's market up there.
We wouldn't be there on Sundays. It would be Tuesdays through Saturdays, and any other village events or things of that nature would not be there. So it would be
And
Now what, just to bring up some history, what we did in the past, Mr. Anderson had it 20 years. And then some folks complained. And then they complained, and they complained, and they complained. And so then we went to the scenario that you would bid for the spot, sealed bid. And I think maybe 2 or 3 years, Mr. Anderson was the only one, so he continued to operate. Then my recollection becomes a little fuzzy. I don't know, I think he just retired. I'm not quite sure why he ended it, but it ended after a long, long time. And then there wasn't one. Now, we've had other people come before us and they've been denied periodically.
I just personally think that for the businesses that are out here, it's tough enough. And I don't know if that would be quite fair. And I'm not just saying this because of what's going on now. I always thought of that when Mr. Anderson was out there. And I'm just speaking for myself. I didn't think that was quite fair to do that, unless it would be on a private property or something like that. But I think to be in the middle of a municipality on their property doing that, I don't think that's proper. That's just me.
could I throw out one aspect that colors my thinking in terms of this particular proposal? Both Mr. and Mrs. Marvin are very, very active firefighters in the community. They are both officers in the fire department. And I think in reality that should give them a little extra consideration in doing this at least on an experimental basis. And if there is a hue and cry of other potential vendors, then I gather we have the option of going to the bidding process in the future. And I do understand your concern about,
But then would you want to have, if you go into that situation, then would you want to have now other vendors that you're having out there?
well, I'm
I'm
just
saying,
right now
you know,
we don't have other vendors making the request.
It's very difficult to look at some of these businesses that just aren't making it, and, you know, to try to get them in the door. I'm not saying that, I just think that if we do this, we're opening up another door here. And I think it's just you know, if you allow one, you can't deny others, because now you're getting into a selective situation. And I think, again, for the businesses that are here, I mean, if we were doing so well that there wasn't as many vacant stores as there are right here, and business was booming in the village of Howland Falls, but we all know it's not. And we all are seeing stores open and close. I just think that if somebody's going to be trying to open up a store and they're going to be paying what they should be, it's not in reality right for them to see a business out there that's being granted permission to be on a municipal property. That's just me. And then again, if you allow the one, then you can't deny other ones. That's just my feelings. I mean, it's just the way I feel about it. If, you know, you're all welcome to vote, you all got your own votes.
I believe having a hot dog wagon out there when I was much younger and had long hair, in the municipal parking lot was a plus. It brought more people off of West Point to come out and have a hot dog outside during the summer. I understand your concerns, but
And just for the record, I do the same business, but this has no reflection on what I do. I get barely any business from up here. It doesn't, I'm on way down there, so just for the record.
so, you know, I would be in favor of it, like Mrs. Murphy said, even if it was like on a temporary basis.
But that's why how do you do temporary basis? How do
Well,
you-
we could grant it for this summer,
This season.
for the
this year.
season.
But then what do you do to the next person that may be watching the meeting right now and says, hey, you know what? What about me? I want to have Italian ice out there.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but I mean, what do you do if somebody says, hey, I want to do Dots ice cream, or I want to do...
Dippin' Dots.
Dippin' Dots are very good.
What do you do? I mean, here you have an ice cream shop. Do you say,
well,
you see, this is what I don't think would be...
when I was across the river, actually, someone wanted to sell roses, and it was direct competition to the florist. I do think it's a little bit different here because, as far as I know, there isn't an immediate hot dog vendor on that strip, Main Street. And if you're concerned that if we grant this vendor permission, we'll have half a dozen other people coming out. If I'm understanding what took place in the past, the village board allowed one vendor spot and opened it up to bids with the competing wagons and options. And then there was a selection process. I think it's definitely within the purview of this board and our best interests to limit to one space a vendor in the parking lot.
But what I am saying is if you have 4 people that go up to this and have lunch at that, you have a shop here that's paying its taxes and everything else, and we're paying a very high rent that just lost 4 people for lunch.
Well, in this case, you've got
that's-
two individuals who are coming out in the middle of the night fighting fires, so.
Well, Charlie, you can't say that because that's irrelevant of this whole thing. I mean, I could say I'm on the ambulance corps and somebody could say they're a police officer, and I could say I'm military and somebody could say this, and I could say, hey, listen, well, then why can't I have
And
that?
I do think
That's
that community
irrelevant.
service should count for something.
It shouldn't, it's community service, and I gotta tell you something, for myself, for what I do on the ambulance corps, I do it for the pride. For the military, I don't want nothing out of it. It's for what it is. You know, it's for me to say, hey, I'm proud of what I do. I'm not asking for something because of that.
And the
But that's
margins aren't
sort of
either.
what you're stating
Well,
right now.
I'm just stating my opinion as you've stated
Yeah,
yours.
but we're at 2 different statements. I could care less of what I get for what I do.
Right, so in my opinion is that anybody that wants to come into the
Okay.
village to try to bring more
All right, well, you guys go ahead.
traffic into the village,
Okay,
I think is a plus.
okay.
And you know what, maybe if their hot dog stand turns into a phenomenal success, which I hope it does, maybe they will rent out one of the empty storefronts that we have and eventually turn it into a Pete's Hot Dog, which has been a staple up in Newburgh since the early 1900s.
Well, that's a wishful thinking, Jim, but I gotta tell you something. For right now, I think for the businesses that are out there, and if I had a business on Main Street,
Contact your
I would not
business
be
people.
happy at this moment listening to
Oh, yeah.
this. That's just for myself. I wouldn't be. That's just me.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
say.
you need to come up here, hon, I'm sorry.
All right.
Just state your name.
All right. I'm Clarissa Marvin, 29 Villa Parkway, Highland Falls. The intent of the hot dog stand is not to compete with the businesses across the street. Jesse and I have spoken to some of the other business owners just to get some information to let them know what our thought process is. We haven't really gotten much pushback. I mean, they haven't, we haven't gotten a lot of say either way about it. But that's why it's hot dogs and not ice cream. It's not sandwiches. It's not pizza. And it's also to bring back some of the nostalgia that Jesse felt when he was growing up with the hot dog stand that used to be out there. So the intent isn't to compete. The intent is to participate. We also looked into renting a space, and it's just not anywhere near our budget. So this is step one to hopefully down the road at some point be able to get either a storefront or a traveling food truck, which would be out of the village. So.
But my point is though, okay, my point is, again, you cannot be selective.
Right.
You cannot be selective, and that's a major key when you have something, especially when you're dealing with the community, or you're dealing with customers, or no matter what you're dealing with, you cannot be selective. And for myself, I think we're going to be very selective. If somebody comes inside this room and says, hey, I want to do ice cream, and we say no, we are selective.
But with the bid process, does that still make it selective?
I believe so, why wouldn't it?
Because multiple vendors could bid on the space.
Well, if the board wants to get into doing that, that's what's going to take,
Okay.
that's what's going to happen. But again, as you say that, it's not in your budget to do something right now, I could probably say that 3/4 of the businesses along Main Street, their budget right now is on a fine line. And I don't think I should use any exaggeration in saying that, because you're looking at somebody that grew up in this community, and I gotta tell you something, having a business here is tough. It's tough. And you know what? Every business, I think, along here, and the bad thing is, I've seen some beautiful businesses open up, and one beautiful one that just opened up, and I feel horrible for the guy because he took tons of money into the place. He's not doing well. And the thing is, when you have businesses like this, that's where it should be focused. I just think we're going outside our territory here. And that's just me. That's just me. Anyway, you guys can do whatever you want.
Mr. Howard?
I think we need to take what the other businesses are feeling about this. They do sell hot dogs. That's a fact.
So, my suggestion would be along the lines of what Mr. Howard just said. I say we take 2 weeks to our next meeting, 2 weeks from today, and we individually, as you want, go into any place you want and see what their feeling is. It is an issue. It is an issue. The whole thing is great. I happen to like the cart and the umbrella, and I think it's friendly, and I think it's small hometown, and I thought that the last time and things happened. But
And I think it's great too, but you have to have more than. You have to have, there's going to be more.
I'm sorry, more.
More vendors that are going to wish
Yeah.
to participate in
Yeah,
this.
we've had them come in
There's
downstairs.
going to be. I mean, you would be crazy to not think, if you're a vendor out there, that, hey, you know what? They're going to open up vending in Howard Falls. Well, why not?
I've had a couple. Would you two consider that we table it for 2 weeks? It'll be on the agenda 2 weeks from today. And we talk to people.
Yeah, and also, it's important for the Marvins to get their paperwork together.
Absolutely. There'll be an up or down on, and I promise you it's on the agenda. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Howard, would you have the DPW, as best they can, do Roe Park with the high pressure, with the goose poop? It's pretty much covered on the playground and in the basketball court. Actually, there's debris from the storm in the basketball court. I'm wondering if maybe, if time permitted, it's tough, I know, there's a lot going on for the highway, but if they could at least do it every Friday, at least it would be somewhat clean for the weekend.
The poop is bad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Real bad.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I would like the board tonight to consider transferring $1,500 out of the, I believe it's the youth.
Yep.
I believe it's the youth budget line.
Yeah.
I think there's 10,000 in it for this purpose, that it go to the center. And better clarification can be given by Mr. Howard. But we know the Recreation Department does a fantastic job all year. Their summer programs go to around age, if not only, but very close to age 12, which is also good. But we need to take care of these kids also from 12 to a little older. And the center is providing those types of activities. Now, they need some funds to put these programs on for the older kids, and they need these funds also. Some of them are free, but some of them are per person that you have to pay, like Little League. And there's a tremendous amount of families here that can't afford these type of activities for their kids. So that's what the $1,500 would go towards.
It also is going to provide us with transportation. We're going to have to rent the van. We did that last year. The other thing that was interesting is we got donations for our summer school program. It'll be from June, and then we'll have different activities in July and August. And some residents said, listen, I would like to see this kid in my block go. And on the sheet, we have exactly what it costs for each activity. And they hand us a check with the child's name on the bottom without the kid knowing it. We make the phone call and say, guess what, you're going on a summer trip with us. And some of the parents just cannot afford it. That's a fact of life.
So are these trips here set in stone?
Yeah. Well,
Why don't you mention them? I think they're great.
Well, Howe Caverns, the Albany tour. We have people coming in to talk to them about college. Last year, we took them to the court system down here. Said, this is what happens when you mess up. You go to court, lawyers and things of that nature. New York City experience. We have kids who have never been up to Albany, and they've never been into the city. So that is going to help us have a summer program for kids 12 and beyond.
Playland.
Playland, yep.
Can we go to
So that's what we plan on
Do we need
doing.
a motion for this?
Yeah, I would like to change the amount. Let's round it up to $2,000. Mr. Howard, if they spend it, fine. If not, it can be held over. If you would ask them to hold it over till next summer, and at least we can start off with whatever's left from this year.
Okay, thank you.
I'd make a motion on this.
Motion by
Second.
trustee Livesey, second by trustee Ramus. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain because I'm on the board.
Let's take roll call.
Trustee Albert?
Abstain, I'm on the board.
Aye.
Ramus?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a good cause. All right, next I have property maintenance, even though they were on the agenda tonight, that I would like to give you, Charlie, and it comes from you. 15 Sweezy Avenue, I'm going to give you this, 58 Center Street, 23 Liberty Street, 21 Schneider Avenue.
Didn't we just do some of those?
no, none of these. 49 Villa Parkway, 16 Fort Putnam, 23 Tobin's, 8 Fostoria. There's a garage on Cooks Lane, 6 Cooks Lane, 128 Mountain Avenue, 136 Mountain Avenue, 117 Center Street, 11 Center Street, and 138 Mearns, and 11 Main Street, which is Nicole's. This is I'm going to just pick up what you said, Mr. Howard. This comes from the community, not you, not me, although that's fine. But we're not going to tolerate this. You know, I was thinking when you were talking, Mr. Howard, it's like that old theory they have, one broken window, all of a sudden there's two. And that is exactly what this is. And if you see, there's 2, 3, 4 on one street. Thank you.
How many of those are vacant? Do you know?
Not many.
Not many?
No, not many at all.
Most of the vacant ones we've already addressed.
Yep.
and
Right.
Boarding up.
This is maintenance.
No, I know, I realize it's maintenance, but they're not the vacant ones either.
You know, 20 Lake Street, I discussed with him today, so some of these are in the works.
Okay.
14
okay,
and
good.
20.
Okay.
Grass cutting, huh?
There's folks out there that do it for a business. They'll cut your grass. You know,
For a price.
maybe you even have a teenage son.
Yeah.
Do they still do that?
$50.
Okay. I'm going to read, and I'm not going to do it as fast as I can, but I'm going to read a press release.
Do we have a copy of that or no?
I don't think,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll definitely give it to you.
I'll listen.
Okay. This pertains to Operation Street Sweeper. At approximately 5 a.m. on June 1, 2018, the Highland Falls Police Department, along with the Orange County Sheriff's Office, executed search warrants at 3 locations. Location 1, 27 Center Street, second floor apartment in Highland Falls. Residing was Michael Camper Hunter. Michael Camper Hunter was under investigation for the criminal sale of narcotics and criminal possession of narcotics, both felonies. A search warrant was obtained for Camper Hunter's apartment. While executing the search warrant, officers discovered evidence that was seized for possible additional charges. Michael Camper Hunter, age 31, was charged with criminal sale of controlled substance, 3rd degree, B, felony. Criminal possession of controlled substance, 3rd degree, B, felony. Possession of drugs, paraphernalia, 2nd degree, A, misdemeanor. He was arraigned at the Town of Highlands Court before Judge Gregory Stewart and was sent to Orange County Jail on $30,000 cash bail, $50,000 bond. Location number 2, 82 Center Street, Highland Falls. Residing there was Karen Kimbrough and Jason Kimbrough. Karen and Jason Kimbrough were under investigation for the sale of narcotics and possession of narcotics, both felonies. A search warrant was obtained for the Kimbrough home. While executing the search warrant, officers discovered evidence that was seized for possible additional charges. Karen Kimbrough, age 67, was charged with criminal sale of controlled substance in the 3rd degree, B, felony. A criminal possession of controlled substance, 5th degree, D, felony. She was arraigned at the Town Court of Highlands before Judge Gregory Stewart and was released on $500 cash bail. Jason Kimbrough, age 48, was charged with criminal sale of controlled substance in the 3rd degree, B, felony. Criminal possession of controlled substance, 5th degree, D, felony. He was arraigned at the Town of Highlands Court by Judge Gregory Stewart and sent to Orange County on no bail. Location number 3, 14 Schneider Avenue in Highland Falls. Residing there was Patrick Perdue. Patrick Perdue was under investigation for sale of narcotics and possession of narcotics, both felonies. A search warrant was obtained for Perdue's house. While executing the search warrant, officers discovered drug paraphernalia and 4.1 grams of heroin. All were seized. Patrick Perdue, age 41, was charged with criminal sale of controlled substance, 3rd, B, felony, and controlled possession controlled substance, 3rd degree, B, felony, and was arraigned at the Town of Highlands Court before Judge Gregory Stewart and sent to Orange County Jail, no bail. The criminal charge is merely an allegation that the defendant has committed a violation of the criminal law and is not evidence of guilt. All defendants are presumed innocent and entitled to a fair trial during which it will be the state of New York's burden to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, I sat up here a few months ago and I said, if you're a drug dealer, leave town. People laughed, people talked, Facebook lit up by a certain group. I guess they thought I was kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm going to say it again. You either drive yourself out of town or you'll drive in a police car out of town. It's that simple. These are not just words by me. Now I'm going to read a letter that I'm submitting to the News of the Highlands. Dear editor, in March 2017, I was elected mayor along with my two running mates, James Ramus and Merv Livesey. This new administration took over on the 3rd of April 2017 along with Brian Albert and Barbara Murphy. Immediately, and I can tell you immediately was day one, immediately I asked Chief Scott to rebuild a decimated police force and operations. I also tasked the chief to combat the drug sales and use of drugs in this village. This report will cover the progress the police department has achieved to combat drug sales and drug use in the village. To combat to combat the sale of drugs, we partnered with the District Attorney's Office of the Orange County Drug Task Force. We also needed to work with West Point Criminal Investigation Division and the West Point Provost Marshal's Office and other law enforcement agencies. That was a must. I demanded that that be done. This approach, here's an administration, 5 of us, we're told we don't do anything about drugs. Listen to this. This approach has resulted from May 2017 to May 2018 in a total of 60 drug arrests. 2 of those drug arrests resulted in the seizure of cars, one of which we now own. This vehicle can be sold for funds to be used to cover costs of future drug investigations. Since taking office, I have had weekly meetings with the Chief of Police, the men and the women of the department. Our department is working hard to combat and save our youth from the dangers of drugs using multi-pronged approach, enforcement, education, and prevention. And I'm not going to read the next 3. I talk what enforcement means, education means to us, and prevention. This is a 24/7 operation. 24/7. So when those out there make remarks and put stuff on Facebook about this administration, that we don't care, that we're not doing anything, believe me, when I say anything up here, it's the truth. You can check it out. You can check it out. I wouldn't be caught lying up here. This is number one. Number one for me. And it's been like that since April the 3rd, 2017, when I came back to office. It's not a game. It's not a game. Met with Central Hudson, who gave me an update on roads they're going to be doing. I gave them a list of roads we're going to be doing, possibly, so that we can coordinate. When we're tearing up a road, they put new gas lines in. The meeting lasted an hour and a half. I just gave you the short version. I don't think you want an hour and a half. But it was a good meeting. It's good to do that. Well, that's a suggestion from the DPW.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, I think so. There's a meeting this week with county folks and DOT folks about what I always refer to as the Sue Kelly money for Mearns Avenue. That should be a very interesting meeting, and I will let you know what happens after the meeting. We received this money from the federal government passed by the United States Congress in 2004, and we still don't have the money. That's not right. That's not right. So right around the streets, I don't want to wait till September of what streets we're going to do. If you see something besides what's on there.
Well, Mearns is a must, we know that.
Mearns is a must. Yeah, Mearns is a
I
must.
was up there Sunday, it was horrible.
I have additional information on the waterfront property that I'm going to share with you after I go through it. The $10 million grant for Main Street was submitted. It had, the deadline was June 1, 4 p.m. It was submitted at 2 p.m. on June 1, and now we wait. It won't take long before we're notified, hopefully, to come for an interview like last year, and then they make a decision on who should get the $10 million. I'm going to make a meeting, and I'll let you all know, because I'd like at least one of you there for cell tower. I'm going to meet with a guy who wants to put a cell tower up. So we'll meet with him. If we go forward with this, it doesn't need to necessarily have to be him. It can be, there's so many. I want who's going to give us the best deal.
Does he have a location?
Yes, village property. He's got a couple suggestions, so. That's the $10 million grant. Just give me a second. We have to move forward with Jose Sierra's situation. Elise, I think the ball was in his court to get you something, a topo? You don't have it yet?
I don't have anything else.
Okay, so it's still in his.
Has he contacted you? No?
Well, he wouldn't, his attorney.
But
No,
you haven't got any contact? No.
That and the surveyor had to go out and do some more field work. So I'm sure as soon as that transpires, we'll get whatever we get required.
This is a scam, and I think it's worth letting everyone know about it. It's a scam, not by O&R, but involves O&R. Orange and Rockland today warned the public about the latest rash of phony bill payment schemes in which imposters pose as utility company representatives and call customers demanding immediate payment for what the crooks fraudulently claim are delinquent electric and gas bills. The scammers pose as utility company employees and call customers saying their service will be disconnected if they do not make an immediate payment using a prepaid debit card or even a credit card. So be careful. Be careful who's calling you and saying you have to pay today or else. Those words alone, most likely it's a scam. Rope Park pool, I know has been drained and some patching has either started or complete, so we should go over there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, to look.
Absolutely.
This Sunday, Rolling Thunder, I don't have to explain who Rolling Thunder is because they've been coming here, this will be their 19th year. So they'll be coming through town out of their gate around noon, and there'll be a short ceremony at Memorial Park. And so if the weather's nice, you're going to be there, Ron? If the weather's nice, there'll be hundreds. It's quite a sight to see. So that's this Sunday at noon at Memorial Park.
What time are they coming in, Joe?
Noon,
They're coming in at noon?
yeah, out of their gate. Okay. Mr. Howard, I would like you to go next.
I'm going to switch roles and go into the role of the police commissioner, which I've been assigned for some time now. People were asking me questions Saturday, and then I met with police Sunday, and then I had more questions asked of me Sunday. I met again today, Monday, with police officers, chief, and again, questions came up. I do not know when raids occur. Nobody on the board is ever called up the night before and say, by the way, tomorrow at 5 o'clock, we're gonna have a drug raid. That's not what happens. That doesn't happen. And when I say I don't know, I didn't know about it, yes, you did. No, I didn't. Well, you're covering something up. No, I'm not. We don't know about the drug raids. It's ridiculous to assume that you're going to tell 5 to 6, 7 people when you're going to do a raid. It doesn't work like that. The sheriff's department was part of the raid. That's normal. Other communities have that. It's called working with other agencies. And you give each other information. Do we have a drug crisis in this country? Absolutely. Do we have drugs in this village and town? Absolutely. Yes, we do. The person that was found dead in the car, I do not know him. And when I was asked a question about his race, I didn't know his race either. I don't know what that has to do with someone dying in a car, but those are some of the questions that were being asked. There were no drugs found in the car. Why am I bringing that up? Because the rumor was that the police were taking blocks of drugs out of the car and no one knows where they were going. They weren't drugs. That day, the training was going on up at Bear Mountain at the range, the shooting range. The chief gave the order to stay with that car until it had been processed. The trunk was open in one car, another trunk was open, another police car, and the ammo and the guns were transferred into a car, and people went up to do the range, the shooting range. The boxes that were seen were rectangular, had ammo in it, didn't have drugs in it. A tox test was taken. The results have not come back, but it's suspected that the person might have died through drugs. But you can't really confirm that until we get the test back. The sad thing is, it wasn't a resident of ours. We didn't know who it was up here. And people said, oh, I think I know who it is. Blah, 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 blah. You know, we don't need to hear that stuff. Can you imagine a family hearing that? Oh, I think it was, and then do the name? That's ridiculous. The war on drugs, or breaking the whole chain of drugs, is not a school issue. It's not just a government issue. It's not just a village issue or a police issue. It's a community issue. But when these rumors start floating around, and they do, whether it be social media or just word of mouth, now we're going to set people into camps. I'm over here because I know this is what happened. I'm over here because I know that didn't happen. What I told you just really happened isn't doing us any good. In fact, if anything, it's not allowing us to do the jobs we need to do. And then you get the camps, well, the police don't do anything. Well, yes, they do. You're wrong. I'm right. You have a problem with the police? You come to the police commission and you say, this is what's going on, I'd like to have a meeting. We'll arrange the meeting. I've done it already. We'll arrange the meeting. But having this back and forth isn't doing any good for our community. It doesn't help kids either. The center now is looking to work with the Orange County Drug Task Force. We're asking that they send down counselors, do a 12-step program for kids whose parents are on drugs. They have somewhere to go. That's what we're looking to do. You have DARE here. It's not like we're not trying to change things. We are trying to change. People need to work together. I mean, when I hear people say, I know where the drugs are, well, good, tell me, and I'll tell someone else and we'll work on it. But if you don't tell us and we don't know, then the next day it's like, well, you should have known that. Well, guess what? I didn't. The body that was found in the Hudson last Tuesday had nothing to do with these drug raids. It wasn't a resident of ours. It wasn't an OD. But that's the rumor. And then people say, do you know anything about that? No. You know what? You're in their pocket. Again, do we have a drug issue? Yes. But breaking down into camps and going against one another is not going to help us. So I'm asking, if you have a concern, voice it in an appropriate manner. If you know something, let people know about it. But this conflict's got to end. It's getting to the point where no one really knows what the truth is and what's not true. So I'm asking that we work together as a community. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Howard, it's, a lot of it is in this community that's putting people against the truth is social media. And I wish it would stop. And I'm also extremely surprised at who I see on these sites that read it and don't say anything. They're just as bad. They're just as bad. Mr. Livesey.
I just got to come. My first question would be for the chief back there.
Is he over there?
He's back there. Do we still, I remember at the last meeting, they were talking about helmets for the kids. Is there helmets?
Yes, we still have
Okay. There's not many?
But there's some, yeah.
Because that's one thing I've noticed is a lot of the children now without helmets on, you know, on the roads.
Hi, Richie. So we're just trying to find an officer to take her place, but we still do.
Okay.
And out from the police department.
So if you hear that at home, you still have some at the police department? Okay, okay. Another thing I want to mention is, and my buddy Jim Ramus will probably join in on this here, there's a lot of bear in this community. There is. There's a lot of bear and they're out there. And also there's a lot of raccoons that are out there and
When was
everything.
the last time you ran into a bear?
The other day, right on the road, on Murns. Big, real big. And as a matter of fact, today, I just made a new home for a raccoon, okay? Because they're all over the place. So a lot of things you should do at your house is your garbage to move somewhere where they're not gonna get into it and smell it. Isn't that correct, Jim?
Yes.
Okay?
Well, don't get him going.
Because it's
You know what you're talking
it's going to really attract them. And up on Murns Avenue and Eagle Valley and all of that, there are a lot of bear down by you, Ron. I know you got bear roaming around Clytes and all of that. There's a lot of bear that are coming down the mountain now, and they're getting adjusted to that easy eats. And you got to be very, very careful. This thing out there that a bear won't come after you, just slap your hands and he'll run away. Well, good luck with that when he's hungry. It's not going to happen. Raccoons are the same way. I got a raccoon this morning. He was a big raccoon. So you got to be very, very careful with this. And the reason that I say this is because I notice a lot of times the thing of putting a cement or something on top of your garbage lid is faded away. A lot of people don't do that anymore. And last week, garbages were knocked down all over the place. We got to really start practicing that and watching that. And lastly, I just want to bring up, and this goes back to the chief, and I keep saying this about the car speeding, and I know everybody knows what I'm talking about on the back roads. I don't know how to prevent this anymore. The police cannot be everywhere, Commissioner. They cannot be everywhere. But it's just like unbelievable the way some of these cars are going around anymore. It really is. I mean, you don't want to hear of somebody got hit by a car, but God almighty, I keep pushing this out there. If there's a car that you know, and you're like saying to yourself, there goes that darn car again, you got to get a plate number and give it to the police department and let them know what that car was, because it's really happening. And the last thing I got to say is about the emergency services. I know the fire departments are probably always looking for volunteers, but I could tell you that the Town of Highlands Ambulance Corps is going to be doing some food and everything else, and Marty, sorry if I'm wrong with saying this, but it's going to be next Saturday. And we're looking for volunteers on that ambulance corps, so if you're interested in being an EMT or a driver, you can stop down at the Town of Highlands Ambulance Corps. And that's it.
Thank you. That's good stuff. Mrs. Murphy?
I'd like to underscore something that Brian said earlier about if you have a complaint, feel free to make it to us as far as, the building department. I know for some neighbors, I'll use the alleged ducks in an apartment, and a neighbor had a complaint about it. Well, we as the board need to know who's making the complaint, and we can protect your identity, but we have to be able to tell the building department where the ducks are or where the problems lie. So if you don't want to do this independent of us, by going down to the building department, feel free to contact me on building issues. On the upside, I've got to say that the DPW this summer has just been knocking it out of the park. The parks look fabulous, and I was astounded coming up Webb Lane recently. All of the weed trees have been cut down. If we had to wait for West Point to cut those trees down, they'd be falling down. So that was just inspirational to see that work done. I do think that we've done a good job with our volunteer organizations going out, Vision, Rotary, picking up litter. Prior to West Point's graduation, the streets had been really clean. There is an awful lot of garbage just being dropped on the streets now, so I would make the plea that we do a good policing job of litter. And then last but certainly not least, the Art Walk has its grand opening this Saturday at 4 o'clock, followed by a meet and greet that is a ticket fundraiser for the chamber, but tickets are still available. Cindy Maudlin, who is heading this up, is in the audience. Cindy, could you hold up the T-shirts that show the logo?
Maybe she'd do that on public comment and come up here.
Oh,
so
that's
everybody
true.
can hear and see.
Okay. And that's all I've got.
What time's your work?
4 o'clock in Lady Cliff Park.
In Lady.
We need a T-shirt gun. Thanks. Okay. That's the logo, and our sponsors, including the Village of Highland Falls, is on the back.
Mr. Ramus.
Yeah, a couple of things. I spoke with the DPW over the past couple of weeks about some of the safety meetings that they're going to be having. It seems that there was a few issues with some manholes that they're going to address. And interim superintendent said he was going to take care of that. As far as the sewer department, all's going well down there. And we extensively spoke about the water department. I was up there. It's kind of sad to see some of the things when you go down into the inner workings that have been neglected. I hope we can work on them soon. A couple other things. The New York State Department of Transportation, they have a program out there. It's called TAP. This is a transportation alternative program. They have funds that are related to projects that increase options for non-vehicular transportation. These funds would include some things like safe routes to schools, which enables and encourages children to walk and bike and ride to the schools. I'm saying this directly to the school board and the powers that be up there. We have in our plans to work on the sidewalk across from Hogan's right now. The sidewalk ends more or less next to Aristos property, and it would be nice to see if we could get that extended, and this may be one of the alternatives where it won't cost us any money to at least get a design set up and then move forward with the construction of those things. So I'll make sure I get this to you, Mr. Mayor, for our grant writers. There's some things from the Environmental Protection Agency that are coming up. They have some air quality sensor workshops. These are online, and that one's going to be on June 25th and 26th. You can register. All you have to do is give me a call. I can give you their website, or send me an email at my email address. It's on the village website. They also have another great one out there. They're going to have tools for tracking waterborne disease. Again, the more information you know about things that can harm our environment, the better we're off, especially when you see something, say something. Another quick thing I got is June is National Healthy Homes Month. Again, this is from the EPA. You go onto their website, they have partnered up with the Housing and Urban Development platform that's all federal money, and they have a lot of programs out there that talks about, how to better ventilate your filters, air cleaners, and how to control the sources of this indoor pollution that has a tendency to trigger asthma, especially not only in the young children, but the older people. So anybody that wants that information, please shoot me an email and I'll be happy to get it back to you.
I just got a question. And this is, you remind me when you were talking about the EPA. So I have a thing at my job where we could indicate range forecasts, especially like hurricanes and stuff like that. And there are a couple that are suspected. Anyway, we spoke about the brook, about the walls down there. Did we find anything on the FEMA, if there was anything that...
No.
Because I walked down behind the town hall and some other areas like that. That is in horrible shape down there. It's really in bad shape.
So some grants were given out by the Department of Environmental Conservation throughout the Hudson Valley. I didn't see our name on that list. I will reach out to the commissioner about that, and I'll try to get back in touch with you on that. It's definitely ripe for the pickings for us to address the erosion along those banks, and then we can go from there. And then, one last thing. I did send Mary Jane something about the bears and other critters that are emerging, and maybe she might get that into the paper this week. Turtles.
I read it. Didn't I read that in the paper? Oh, I didn't read it.
We gotta watch out of them turtles out there.
There's three spots in the Highland Brook wall behind Town Hall that have to be fixed, and we have some FEMA money, most likely not enough, but they still have to be fixed. And number two, I was down there today looking, and it's really getting covered with all kinds of vegetation.
Weeds.
Really, it's the worst I've ever seen it, actually.
That's what I seen, yeah.
Yeah, so that's gonna have to be addressed by us.
And it looks like it's all the erosion is starting to come down a little bit, so it's getting more shallow.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it, because we all know what that brook gets like. That's an evil brook when it wants to get mad,
You know for
Oh,
sure.
I know that. I'm fine now, though. I got gorilla proof up there now.
Mr. Howard?
Yeah, Gina reminded me, we had agreed to start an interview procedure for the street superintendent, but I didn't make the appropriate motion, so I would like to make that motion now, that we begin to interview for that position.
Street supervisor.
It has to be a formal, right, Gina? I'm making
No.
a formal.
No,
Okay,
just we'll look to you to make the date and we'll be there.
okay, all right. Get it out.
My last thing is, yesterday, Sunday, I had the pleasure of meeting two folks and their wives that are going to open up a real bakery here in the village of Highland Falls. It won't be long from now. They're excited. I'm excited. They said they were going to have cannolis, and so I look forward to that. So we're going to have a bakery here in Highland Falls. Is there anything from anyone? Yes.
Ray Devereaux on DR Park. I would appreciate an update on two issues. One is the Old Guard Hotel status, and the next would be the Roundout Consulting project.
Please, you want to give the old guard?
Well, I mean, the latest missive I read from the engineer, which went to the board, was that they had met and they were expecting a hazardous waste report so that they could issue, they being the building department, could issue a demolition permit. I don't know if that permit has been issued yet. And so that's the latest we have on that. So they have met with the developer. The developer is aware of what has to be done.
Roundout, maybe three, not maybe three, at least three, probably 4 weeks, several, 6, 7, 8 times a week for the last 3 to 4 weeks. I've been calling Tim, who's our contact person with that agency. Every time, 35, 40 times, I've gotten his answer machine. The first couple times I didn't leave a message, but I have been leaving a message ever since. Now, when I call, he happens to be extension 1. Now, when I call, if I hit extension 1 and I get his voicemail, I hang up and call again, I hit number 2. That's a voicemail. I believe the village clerk has tried a couple of times, and I believe the police chief has also tried a couple of times with no positive results. So the ball is actually in his court. That's why I'm trying to get him, to see what his next step is with the police report, and then I can figure out with him, Tim, what our next step is. So that's all I can tell you tonight. Anything else?
Olga Anderson, resident of Highland Falls. Sort of like a two-parter, half of which Ray brought up, but I wanted to follow up on my question of the last time I was here about a month or so ago as far as the shared services initiative that the county is engaged in with the state, with the village's participation. I wondered if there was any movement on identifying those kinds of services that can be shared with perhaps the town that could go into that initiative and result in, hopefully down the line, some savings with regard to taxes. And speaking of the Roundout consolidation report, I sure hope they're still around.
Well, we have a phone.
I mean, do they have an address? I'll go and knock on their door. But once we have that final report, it seems to me that that would fit perfectly into what the whole shared services initiative is looking for. So it seems like a lot of the work that we might need to be doing from the village's perspective as far as submitting plans for shared services, if we can get that final report, it could roll right up into that. So there's two good reasons to try to find these people.
I don't think that your second point is correct as far as what shared services is looking for. And what was your first question?
You thought that there was some things that actually could be put forward for the shared services.
So I speak once a week, if not maybe twice, but once a week for sure, with Nicole Anderson. She's the director for the Orange County Planning Department for this initiative. There's a spreadsheet. This is the spreadsheet. And it deals with all the different departments from DPW to police to dispatching, tax collection, everything. Most people know right now that these shared services that we have, we share services with the police department in the town of Highlands. 2 fire departments share services. The village shares a service of water to the town. There's a shared service with the building department. There's a shared service with the planning board. There's a shared service with the zoning board. There's a share service with recreation. There's a share service with the courts. There's a share service with sanitation. There's a share service with the animal control. And it goes on and on. Cemeteries. The list goes on and on. So all of that will go into this spreadsheet, which the department heads are helping me, and it'll be submitted to the county. Now, some of my notes from Nicole, this is a 3-year project. This is not, we could submit whatever, and it's not going to mean anything for at least 3 years. There's no money to come.
Well, the project gets reviewed and
Well, I'm
gets reviewed after a
Okay.
year and can be updated.
Okay, but
Yeah,
there's no money
I believe
coming.
that.
Okay. It was portrayed a little different than that until I spoke to her. So the answer is I'm working with the county on shared services to give them an update what we do.
Right.
I don't know if the town's doing it. And in fact, she told me only 3 communities in Orange County, and we're one. So we're not on it. We're in it.
Yeah, I've been to those meetings and
Well, I
I've
know
seen
that,
other
but
communities there.
okay?
Yeah.
So that's the.
As long as there's some effort being made, I appreciate that.
Oh, there's a lot of effort being made.
Excellent. Thank you.
Actually, I'll be honest with you, it's actually easy to do this spreadsheet because we do so much now. Historian. I mean, if you think enough, there's this many more. I think this is impressive. I wonder what other villages provide and towns have what we have now. I suspect maybe not that many. That's a guess. It doesn't matter. I only care about here. We do a lot. We do a lot. So, assessor's office. Did I say building department? Yeah, but I didn't say assessor's office. So there's all, you keep thinking, you keep coming up with things. Anything else? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. I thank you very, very much. It's good to see my friend here. What is it, the 124th New York?
And by the way, 4th of July is coming around, donations.
Oh, yeah, donation, you say it.
Donations.
We're short, so thank you so much.
We need money.
Are you in the parade? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Motion to adjourn by trustee Murphy. Is there a second?
I
Trustee
second it,
Ramus,
Randy.
all in favor by trustee Livesey and trustee Howard. Aye.
Aye.